former President Trump will appear on CNN next Wednesday as part of a New Hampshire town hall moderated by Caitlin Collins. Trump will take questions from Republican primary voters. In the Granite State, it's his first appearance on CNN since 2016.
Now the announcement has some liberals up in arms. MSNBC's Mehdi Hasan tweeted, wow, they're giving a live primetime platform to an indicted insurrection inciter who also incited violence against their network. I was asked multiple times on my recent book tour whether the U.S. media had learned lessons from 2016 and 2020. Clearly, some in our media have not. Commentator Keith Olbermann posted this video to his Twitter account.
The transformation of CNN into a journalistic whorehouse is now complete. Network President Chris Licht not only hands Trump a free hour of live propaganda dressed up as a town hall, but the only questions will come from voters in the New Hampshire Republican primary, the ones who believe Trump won the election.
Thank you, production team, for finding us that clip. That was wonderfully entertaining. Again, this is the narrative I keep returning to, but these are the supposedly guardians of democracy, consider themselves, people like Mehdi Hasan, people like Keith Olbermann, and their impulse is don't let the former president, who might again be president, a major political figure that millions of people support and have voted for, from being interviewed on television. Like that is what appeals to them, and this totally misguided idea that you can't, that if they shut him up, that if CNN doesn't platform him, that's it. He can't get his message out. That's so stupid. I don't understand it at all. So obviously CNN should do this, I think, from my point of view. It's funny given how there are people on CNN itself who feel the same way in other contexts, like, oh, it's so irresponsible to platform Trumpism or, normalizing Trump. But of course, they want to actually make money. So then they're going to turn around and do that. Now, again, I think they should obviously do interviews, do town halls with the major political figure who is likely to be the Republican nominee again, and possibly, I wouldn't bet on it, but possibly the president again. What do you think?
I think it's absurd to be this upset, and I see liberals do it all the time, this upset that Donald Trump is getting airtime on CNN, when CNN will be like, here's Henry Kissinger on what's going on in China right now. It's like you're having on someone who is a war criminal, who many people across the globe are very upset with the foreign policy we've had with Henry Kissinger abroad, with bombing Cambodia more than all of the bombs dropped total in World War II. It's like, where do we draw the line? It doesn't make sense to me. There needs to be some kind of consistency with when we're outraged. It's not up to CNN to indict President Trump. Where was the heat when Merrick Garland could have brought him in on charges? Like, if you believe Donald Trump is criminal, which many people do, if you believe he is guilty of inciting an insurrection, which many people do, be critical of the Biden administration and what Merrick Garland failed to do. And then as soon as Trump said, I'm running for president, Merrick Garland was like, well, now it would be political if I did anything, so I'm going to dip.
Your point about Kissinger is very well taken. James Clapper gets interviewed on progressive cable news channels all the time, someone who admitted, or who is an admitted liar about the extent of the, well, I guess he didn't admit it. He was forced to concede it after it became public knowledge that the U.S. government was engaged in exactly the kind of vast surveillance that intelligence officials had always insisted that they were not doing. John Bolton, a popular, now he's a resistance figure because he was let go by Trump and he hates Trump. Someone who has advocated for war with every other country virtually, with North Korea, with Iran, et cetera. Millions and millions of people would die if his policies were implemented. Some of them were implemented. Thank God more of them have not been implemented. But that's all fine. That's all fine.
I would go as far as to say it's just like lazy political commentary to say like Orange Man bad, how dare you give him a platform, and to ignore all of these other figures that are villains globally, that are just regular commentators on news.
He has a platform. He has platform. He was the former president. He can speak you can't stop people from learning what Trump has to say. It's impossible. All you can do is really like Streisand affect him, I guess, where like he gets suppressed in some small way, and then it generates further outrage that you're trying to suppress him. I think this happened with like the New York Post laptop story. It's happened 100 times, but this isn't some really, really obscure figure who, okay, no one will find out what he knows and thinks if you don't do this interview with him. It's Trump. He's one of the most well-known political figures, most well-exposed political figures in the history of all of time.
Mm-hmm. For a lot of regular voters, Robby, though, all they do is they turn on cable news. They don't go and seek out his content on the interweb. So that might be a little bit difficult for many people. It would be fair for CNN to also have a debate between like RFK, Marianne, and Biden. I would like to see CNN do that.
That'd be fantastic. I would love to see that. Of course, what we talked about this yesterday, which I can't remember which channel it was. Was it CBS, NBC, ABC, one of them, we should Google it, maybe the producers want to tell me if they're looking, the channel that didn't show the entire RFK Jr. debate, not debate, interview, CBS, it was CBS. Yeah. They determined part of it, you can't possibly hear this part, what he has to say about vaccines. It'll be interesting to see if they do the same, if CNN does the same for this Trump, if he gets asked about the 2020 election and starts saying things like, starts claiming that he won when he didn't, whether they will blur that. I don't know how they'll handle that. You have to handle it. You actually do have to post disclaimers if you want to post such content on social media, because the social media companies have their own policies. I don't agree with them, but we obviously have to follow them if we're going to be successful on social media. But it will be interesting to see if they go that route as well.
It's just going to make mainstream media and the establishment political parties more unpopular among the American people, because how patronizing and belittling is it for them to say, we don't believe you can parse this information for yourself, and therefore we will censor it for you. Like, it makes sense, I think, for social media companies to say, this is founded to not be true in some data that we have, and here's the link to that data. Like, I'm for that.
Not for that.
I know you're not, Robby.
Well, it's just they've gotten it wrong so many times. I mean, we've seen this. Rising was affected by this a year ago. It was wrongly alleged that we had spread the election misinformation. A couple times, this content fact-checked on Facebook that the fact checkers they're just activist organizations. They don't have any special expertise. I think, honestly, the fact-checking mechanism I appreciate the most on social media is actually the one on Twitter, despite all the other issues going on with Twitter right now, is the community notes. Have you noticed those?
Yes.
They're just, it's like Wikipedia. Kind of anyone can do it, and then you can edit the note, and you can edit the edit of the note, and it's the public square. It's people, not just experts, not just fact checkers, but anyone can chime in and say, well, here's why that's wrong. Here's an article, and then they say, actually, that's wrong. And I think that generally is more likely. It's community-derived fact checking is better than someone who has an ideological agenda coming in and saying, no, this is wrong. This has been settled.
Could it be argued, Robby, that the herd mentality also has its own bias based off of all of the information that's been fed to people throughout their entire lives getting public education from the American government?
Well, maybe, but I tend to think it's the wisdom of crowds sort of thing, that if you have a bunch of viewpoints, you're more likely to. I mean, this is the idea behind free speech, right? We let everybody talk and express their view and try to persuade, and hopefully the correct opinion is the one, the best supported opinion is the one that wins out. Obviously, that's a little naive and starry-eyed, and it doesn't always work that way. But the alternative, just trusting it to the experts, I think has ignored their blind spots and their preconceived notions about things and all of that. I
think my happy meet in the middle point is so many experts have not even put any effort into making their research and what they publish and what they have to tell people accessible to anybody except for themselves and the peers that review their papers. Mm-hmm. And perhaps if they did a better job of that and were vested in that, this would go differently. But instead, we have these experts who maybe review this content and they get linked and posted in the disclaimers, and people can't really parse that language. So it makes it difficult for herd mentality to be based in any science when the research has been made inaccessible.
All right, well, we will have more Rising right after this.